gonna be Lactoid versus both of you, but
Oh no.
I have every confidence Lactoid can do very well here. I will introduce the topic. I will say hi to my audience, and then we'll get into it. I'll give everyone a brief, and I stress this brief, opening statements on the issue. You can introduce yourselves, your opening thoughts, and then we'll just get into it. Are you guys ready? Any questions?
No, yes.
No, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, yes questions. No, yes, you're ready.
Turn on camera. I'm just retarded. There we go.
Okay, cool. We're good. Everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start this shit show. Okay. Sorry, we are a little late. Why is my screen messed up? Hold on, let me adjust the size of the box. Okay, I think we're good. We look good? I think we look good. Okay, gang, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological platform where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Have we got a show for you tonight? Okay, we have a wonderful guest list here, and we're going to be talking about something that's come up very recently with the Dr. Disrespect discourse. For those of you who don't know, recently Dr. Disrespect was exposed for having whispers, Twitch private messages with a minor where they were planning to meet. We don't know too much of the details, but we do know that Twitch covered it up. Twitch fired him over this, and he has recently lost a lot of sponsors, and he is rightly persona non grata in a lot of spaces. It does beg the question, to what extent should minors be allowed on social media? Should we place bans on anyone under 18 interacting on social media? If not bans, should we place heavy restrictions? What should those look like? There's a lot of questions to answer, and we got a great panel to answer them. I'm going to toss the mic first and foremost to Lactoid, and then we'll go through. What do you got, Lactoid?
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing to limit these fucking kids from being on the internet. I think kids are cringe. I think we should all agree on that. And dealing with them is a headache for all of us. But more importantly, it's a headache for them. The evidence, I have a somewhat empirical opinion on this. I think the evidence demonstrates that social media is not good for the developing minds of young people. And that's just, assuming that they're not exposed to incredibly harmful content or being preyed upon by predators, the kind that Chris Hansen would catch. And when you add that in, there's even more harm, right? Or at least risk of harm to those kids. So I'm cool with banning social media for kids that are like young kids, maybe under 13 or 14, and then restricting social media away from adults, under 18, between that 14 to 18 age range. I think Ron DeSantis has done a pretty good job at those restrictions in his state. I would like to see more things like that around the whole country.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Next up, someone who's, I guess this is your third appearance on my panel. Daniela, what do you have for us?
Yes, it is my third appearance, but my first debate. So bear with me as I do this. But my stance on the issue is that I'm opposed to a national ban or a federal ban on children under 18 to not use social media. Although I am willing to concede that there are risk factors involved. Obviously, mental health is a major issue with young people. Especially as research demonstrates that frequent use of social media can exacerbate that. However, I think there are certain safeguards that could be put in place to mitigate that without having to ban young people from accessing social media, because there is also research to the contrary suggesting that social media can be beneficial in limited situations. Some solutions that I propose, for instance, would be having more parental involvement, such as perhaps a verification system that requires a parental consent, like a registered phone with parents for kids under 15 or 14, or even 18 in those cases. Also, nationally requiring public schools to prevent usage of social media on school grounds. I think that's very beneficial. Some schools do that. I don't think there's a national I don't think there's a national push for that, though. I also would think that perhaps introducing something like COPPA 2.0 would be beneficial. For those that are unfamiliar, COPPA is a Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is a reason why a lot of social media services require you to have like age verification, state you're 13 or older. Because that act is put in place to not allow marketing agencies, for instance, to use information against them for marketing purposes without parental consent. I think COPPA 2.0 tries to expand that age or try to increase that age up to 16. I say might as well increase it up to 18. So you require this age verification system to be 18 years or older to use social media. But I don't think having a ban or requiring more verification systems would be beneficial. I think that is ultimately a negative thing, because the question would be, and this is what my question mostly lies, is what the verification system requirement or age verification system requirement would be necessary. Would you want them to put in IDs, birth certificates, facial recognition systems? I think implementing those is a big risk for more data breaches, and that will just be a glorified surveillance system. So that's, in a nutshell, where I stand on that.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it. I see your super chats, $5 from Gelatinous Rube. The only way to protect kids from sexual predators online is to sick violent predators on kids instead. That is certainly an option. I don't know that one we would support here, but thank you for the $5. Last but certainly not least, Dami Lama, what do you have for us?
All right, so I am wholly against this morally. I don't think it's feasible. I also think it's taking a job and a duty that is to be put on the parents. It's the parents' responsibility to monitor what our kids are doing, and it is a business's responsibility to make money. And the idea that we would force these companies to do something that's against their bottom line with, we'll call it wishy-washy data on the effect, and force them to cover the expense in a way that the only way that it could be implemented is actually creating a bigger data breach threat. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. I think
Okay.
that's pretty much the...
That's where you're standing. That's where you're standing. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here, Dami Lama. I really appreciate you. Let's get into the weeds here. And with that, the floor is open. You guys can start whenever you're ready, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, so a couple things that were said, and I feel as though the most of the disagreement's probably going to be, I guess, with Dalai Lama is your name, sorry, and then
Yes, yes.
Daniela, you're okay with some restrictions, so it would appear. So I think that you're probably a little bit more in the middle here of this discussion, which is a perfectly fine position to take. I think, though, that we have to be careful in characterizing the research as a wash, because it's not particularly a wash. And if you actually look at the meta-analyses as to what they say the positives and negatives are, the negatives are much more tangible in terms of, oh, look, like the people who do this like report much higher rates of depression and anxiety, etc. And then for some subgroups, if we limit their social media consumption, that depression's alleviated, right? And then when you look at the positives, the reported positives are pretty fucking nebulous, right? A high percentage of tweens who use social media say that it's a good place to meet like-minded people or to connect with friends. And like a very high percentage of them, those kids respond that they believe that is the case. But frankly, I don't really care what they believe, right? They're children. We shouldn't care what they believe. They're stupid. What we should care about is what effect this is having on them. And if right now the majority of the evidence appears to indicate that this is having a negative effect on them, I think we have a responsibility. It's fine to be paternalistic towards children. I think we have a responsibility to protect them from themselves.
So when you say the majority of the evidence is against it, can you give me some examples other than like examples of the sources of those? And I don't mean to like source you, but like, because the go ahead.
Well, I mean, I can send you a like the
No,
meta-analysis right here. So
right.
the positives are here. There's a couple studies on the reported positives, right? Specifically, the majority of adolescents report that social media helps them feel accepted. They say that it helps them connect with friends. That research
Yeah, we
appears to be
both
associated with
agree with that.
Vogel's Gels-Watnick. That was in 2023. And then the harms in terms of doubling the risk
Yeah.
of poor mental health outcomes for people who use social media, children or adolescents who use it for more than 3 hours a day. That's Rime and Fetter. That was in 2019. And then there was a specific cohort study where when they reduced social media usage among kids down to only 30 minutes a day, which I would argue is a pretty heavy restriction, this dramatically alleviated depression symptoms. And that was Breguri, Levy, and Makarin. That was in 2022. I can send you what I'm looking at.
Thank you.
Any responses to that, or else I have a question for the
I do want to make one point though.
Please.
What issue that I have with the focusing on social media is that I'm afraid of that leading into a slippery slope situation. Like Lactoid, how would you that's your name, right? Lactoid, yes. How would you respond to like the video game crisis? Because I mean, despite what the memes say, there is a direct connection between also mental health issues, increasing ADHD, and frequent use of video games. I mean, would you want to place restrictions on that? Something like what China implements?
Well, potentially,
Okay.
and this is where I lose the whole audience, right? But when people are freaking out and that moral panic about how video games make you violent, there's a lot of people who say, no, that's not true. That's some complete bullshit. And I was guilty of saying that for a long time too. But, I was fact checked in a debate and it was pretty embarrassing. I have now 12 sources, all indicating that video games do have deleterious effects on the minds of children. And violent video games do make children more aggressive, and it makes them less social, and it causes issues down the line. I think that there is, to some point, there is problems when it comes to exposing children to these things. Now, look, when it comes to allowing adults to do what they want to do, I'm all on board, right? Let adults do what they want to do. They've made the decision, even if it's negative for their life, right? If they want to smoke, they want to drink, whatever, right? But we're not okay with children smoking, and we're not okay with children drinking or driving cars. And the reason is these have deleterious effects in their lives. Well, if we look at this, and this is also having a deleterious effect in their lives, and we have examples of successful policies, like, again, Ron DeSantis did this in Florida relatively successfully. Why? I'm not convinced that it can't be done, right? In the same way we check people's IDs when they go into bars, I think it's fair to expect these companies to check IDs before they allow them on social media.
Okay. The verification system that you think would be most beneficial would be putting in a government issued ID then as a requirement.
If I ran the world, my solution, this is the exact same solution that I would have for porn sites. I've actually been advocating for this system for porn sites going back a long ways because I don't think it's good that kids are watching pornography. I would have the DMV have like an authenticator token that you can get, and the DMV already has all your information anyway. And then you can use the authenticator token that your local DMV's website gives you to access any of these adult-only websites. And the DMV makes sure it's actually you. Because I don't want these fucking private companies having my personal information. I agree with you guys on that. Fuck that, okay? Mm-hmm. But the DMV, I mean, they know everything about me. They have my social security number. They know where I live. They got everything. So if they can vouch for me that I'm 18, that seems to be like the best solution, right?
I guess so. I mean, that's definitely an option. I would be concerned about, again, the increased risk of data breaches, because as far as I'm aware with China, because China has pretty stringent verification systems as well, they put in what their equivalent is of our SSN to access certain websites, and because they have it for video games and for social media, where like they limit children a certain amount of time of social media versus adults. And I mean, I was looking into their implementation processes of that, and even though they have fully implemented that, from what I've read concerning it, and I have to look back on my source here, but like I read one report on, for instance, according to the European Union General Data Protection Regulation Program, it said that implementation process was completely fragmentary, insufficient, ineffective. That there are ways around it, and that it's very difficult to maintain it in an efficient system. So I would wonder like how the implementation process would work, and also that, and this is just one source I found in regards to that. I wish I'd done a little bit more research on it, but I would be curious to know like how would you respond to that? Also, considering that data breaches, especially from like foreign sources, would be much more greatly increased, especially since we require everyone to do this if we don't rely on COPPA, for instance, as an age verification system.
And if I may piggyback just as a question to your authenticator token idea, and this is something that I have talked to you about, or I've heard you talk about it before. Does this not give the DMV access to what sites you are looking up?
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
All right.
Implementation here is going to be critically important. I don't disagree. And if we're saying like, Lactoid, do you support a poor implementation over no implementation? I don't, right? If this could be implemented bad enough that I'd prefer no system at all. I agree.
Okay.
But I would say that if we approach this intelligently, and there is something that we could propose that would work, that this would be superior to having nothing, right? So Google Authenticator, for example, they give you these throwaway tokens that you use to access certain apps. And those tokens are randomized, and they're only good for a set amount of time. And they don't track your data, right? What these tokens would do is simply provide a green check mark from the DMV saying this person has the legal ability to access this website. It doesn't say anything about your personal information, your SSN, your demographics. All it verifies, you are over the age of 18, and you're not, and you don't have a mental disability that puts you in as a ward of the state, right? Obviously, legally these people are essentially children. They also probably shouldn't be able to access this stuff. As long as the websites get that validation, oh, look, green check mark, they're in. That's all I care about. I don't want them having access to our information.
So how do
go
you
ahead.
feel about the idea of that authenticator token being, well, all right, so let me reword this. Why is it more safe to force children to actually identify themselves? Say with the alternative being, so in my house, the rule is anything that identifies you is private. You can't be public with it. My daughter has accounts that are public, but they're like fan accounts. Anything with your face, anything with names, that's all private. But it seems like, say for those other accounts, wouldn't she be forced to identify herself?
No, because she wouldn't have access to the tokens from the DMV, right? Because the DMV is only going to hand out the token if you're over the age of 18. And if you don't, have your information with the DMV, or you're not over the age of 18, you go to click on the give me my token, and then it says denied, right? Because you're a kid.
So if you don't have to do if the kid doesn't have to identify themselves, how do you avoid like the cool parent on the block just signing all their friends up? I mean, all the kids' friends up.
So this is a valid pitfall. The problem is there's no real way to solve this. But just because we can't solve that doesn't mean we shouldn't have any rules. So right now we have rules that prevent kids from buying alcohol, which I'm very strongly in favor of those rules. I don't think kids should be able to buy liquor. Now, I am fully aware that there are parents who buy liquor for their kids. There are people who know adults who, over the age of 21 who've bought liquor for their friends. I have personally, well, I'm not going to admit to that. I don't. Here, I'll admit to this. Because now it sounds worse because now you don't know. Like, I didn't buy minors alcohol.
What you did with the kids,
exactly right. I didn't buy minors alcohol, but when I was a minor, I absolutely bought alcohol from friends that I had that were over the age of 21. That is absolutely the case. Now, was there anything they could do to stop me? No, there's really nothing they could do to stop me. But that doesn't mean we should just get rid of the rule that kids shouldn't be allowed to buy liquor, right? Like, we should be putting as many roadblocks and barriers in front of children doing what they're not supposed to do. And some are going to get through, but at least we've made it harder for them. At least we've cut down on the number of kids who are accessing this dangerous material.
Okay, a question. For those parents who actually say, you know what, the government, I don't want you messing with my family's life, right? I want to make the decisions for my kids. Would you be okay with a system that allows parents to kind of sign a waiver or something, or basically waive this requirement and allow their kids access at younger ages? So maybe they think, for whatever reason, right or wrong, well, my 15-year-old doesn't have any real-life friends, and I want them to make internet friends, so I want to make sure that they have some access to, right, something. So they like, I want them to be able to use Twitter. I want them to be able to go on Twitch. I want them to be able to do all these things. Would you support a parent being able to choose for themselves and for their own family what to allow their kids access to or not?
It's difficult, right? I'm torn on that one because on one hand, you have, I think, the interest in parental rights and maintaining the coherence of the family, which has some good benefits when you in the long run for the child tacked onto it. But on the other hand, there are things that are bad enough that I don't think a parent should allow their kid to do. I would not be comfortable with a parent buying cigarettes or alcohol for their child. I would not be okay, and this is something that there's some disagreement on, surprisingly. I would not be okay with a parent allowing their kids to have sex. I don't think people under the age of 18 should be having sex. I have met parents who let their kids under the age of 18 have sex with other children. I think that's a problem, okay? But in this regard, I guess the question is, is social media so harmful as to be comparable with these things that I think are harmful enough to justify, removing this from the providence of parental decision? And I'm torn on that one. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit torn on that one. I'm leaning towards no. I don't think I'm going to really punish parents all that much if they happen to do it. But I'm not cool with it being an open policy that you can just sign off on your kid. I don't know. Like, Wick, you would agree that kids should not be accessing porn sites even with their parental, even with their parents' permission.
No,
right.
I agree. 100%.
Absolutely, right? And so the question is just social media, with all the research we have about it being like fucked up for kids, does this fall in that bucket or not, right?
But and I know we're missing Janice, right? So I'm going to jump in a little bit. The issue is that there are some children, who live in abusive homes. And the only avenue they have is social media. In fact, the only way that some of them even know they're being abused is through interactions in social media, talking to friends and realizing, hey, not everyone's daddies visits them at night, right? Like not this doesn't always happen, right? So I do worry about that being an unintended side effect of further restricting access to social media to minors, because it does give access to information for better or worse, right?
Yeah, look, there's no way I could honestly deny that could happen, right? It absolutely, whenever you deny any, I mean, on porn sites, there are math, lessons. Technically, could there be some kid that could benefit from that? And now you're denying that. You're right. It's possible. In this case, probably a larger demographic in this case of kids, could get some benefit that are not getting that benefit. But when it comes to policy decisions, I think we have to make this policy decision, especially when we're talking about children, off of, like, generally speaking, what is the best for children. And right now, I'm sorry, we have an epidemic of mental health issues among minors, right? This is like the one thing that we're just getting worse and worse on with time. We're getting better technologically. We're getting better in terms of income, most measurements of quality of life, but people are just depressed. Rates of depression have gone up. Rates of anxiety has gone up. Rates of suicide have gone up. And all this is stemming from around 2014 when you see the major spikes. What happened around 2014? The mass introduction of social media, right? Around this time, this is when you start seeing the graphs skyrocket in terms of mental health problems. I think that this is proving to be a bigger issue than really anything else. And not particularly nearly as big of an issue just numbers wise, but I think there probably are a larger amount of minors that are violated by being on the internet, by adults predating upon them, than minors finding out that they are the victims of predation by their own parents or something along these lines, right? I mean, we've all watched Chris Hansen, right? I mean, these fucking people are crazy.
Are you saying that you think that it's possible that there's more kids on the internet that find their abuser on the internet than in their life?
Not specifically that. I think it's very possible that more kids find their abusers on the internet than would be saved by finding out that they were being abused by information on the internet.
Okay, so we're adding so also the people that find their abusers on the internet, a lot of the time their abuser gets found because they're on the internet. Would you count that towards the number?
When you say they were found because they're on the, I mean, they're found because of what they're doing, right? They're found because there's a sting operation set up, and they show up to meet a 13-year-old.
Well,
but
no,
he's saying that internet usage facilitates them finding the predator easier. I
Yes.
believe, right? Yeah.
Well, also the mediums that we're using. Say you go on Facebook Messenger, you try saying something that is against TOS. They're going to log you out real quick.
Yeah.
And they're going to let you know, hey, don't do that. 2000, what was it? 2018, I think it was. There was I'll call it an epidemic of I got to be careful with my words. Child abuse materials on Facebook. It was running rampant on Facebook, and it turned out they cranked out an algorithm and automated the process of finding out, classifying, finding out, and reporting that material. So there's a lot of benefits. And I would say if you find your abuser online.
Hold on. Can I interrogate that for a minute, Dami?
Sure.
How does allowing minors access to Facebook or other social media sites make any difference in what you just said?
No. My question, the point of my question was, if more, I was asking him because he said, what did you say? You said more people
I would
get
suspect
abused
I would suspect,
online than.
I would suspect more people find their abusers online than children who are saved by finding out that what's happening to them is abuse by information online.
Yes. So the point of that was, holy shit, cat.
I don't know either, man.
No. The point of that was there are mechanisms online. The point wasn't. There are mechanisms online that aren't in life where we know in IRL where we know that the majority of.
Let me just cut to the chase. This is for you, you Dami, and you Daniela.
All right.
Are children safer on social media, or does social media make them less safe? In your opinion, what do you think?
That's really, that's like oh, go ahead if you have the answer. If you have an answer, go ahead, Danielle.
I mean, yeah, I obviously exposure and frequent exposure to communication like that is going to make them less safe. I would agree with that, and I think like I had suggested initially, there is evidence that demonstrates that it does affect mental health. I'm not opposed to having regulations or some safeguards put in place, but I think that having a national, like federal ban completely for, a cutoff at 18 or younger, you can't use social media, I think is foolish on many levels. I think the restriction of social media will make it more attractive for young people. I think that also, in terms of like public perception, it would be negative with Americans. I think it'll be difficult to implement as well. But that being said, I would concede that if you increase communication at that level, there are going to be some risks involved, absolutely. But there's risks involved with anything. I mean, if you go outside at all, out of your house, there's more risk that something bad will happen to you as opposed to staying inside, right? Or if you go drive your car, you have greater risk of getting killed in a car accident. Your mortality rate spikes when you drive, as opposed to just staying home. Doesn't mean I think we should not drive.
Well, we don't let children drive, though.
We let 16-year-olds drive. I think they're children.
Should we? Should we really be letting 16-year-olds drive? I can show you the rates on that.
I don't know. Possibly. I mean, I started driving at 18. I didn't have the attention span to drive at 16. Should we let 16-year-olds drive? I don't know. I don't know anything about that topic.
I mean, I can tell you, right? So when you look at graphs of like accidents, and I've handled cases where you had 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds getting in accidents. Mm-hmm. They're very stupid, right? There is a big distinction between a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, just mentally. There just is, and especially when it comes to operating a motor vehicle, right? Look at the rates of accidents between 16 and 17-year-olds and compare that even to 18-year-olds. There is a massive drop off in just the first couple of years. Now, some of that is obviously going to be, because after a few years you get better at driving. But even factoring that in, right, when you have a minor operating a motor vehicle, a thousands of pound metal machine that they're risking their own life in, I got a problem with that too. And we can have a conversation about raising the age required to get a driver's license. I think it should be 18.
Possibly. Now, that doesn't really speak to the point I was trying to make, but just to engage with what you're saying here for a moment, that could possibly be true. And I think, again, I'm not an expert on like childhood development or anything, but I think there's some case to. I think you're right, Lactoid. I'm going to be in the middle of this issue, but I think there's reason to believe that people are maturing later now. And so, for instance, I think we should also raise the age of consent to like 21, I think, as opposed to 18. It's a few years, but I think it makes a big difference. For example, so I do think there's conversations to be had. That also includes driving, perhaps. Maybe like functioning motor skills isn't as developed at 16 as it is at 18, right?
Hold on. I can't let you just sneak that one in there without interrogating it. You want to
Sure.
raise the age of consent to 21. Interesting.
Absolutely.
So you would say that a
Yeah.
25-year-old dating a 19-year-old would be illegal?
I think there is. I think age gaps should be held into consideration. I think when there is a significant age gap, that's more.
So a 30 and a 19-year-old, no go.
No, I don't think
No
so.
go?
Again, I think, is 21 a perfect age? No, I don't think age of consent is, you can put it at a perfect age. I think a 25 and a 19-year-old is fine. But you also consider the age gap, right? We have similar laws presently with like 16, 18, right? With age gap laws, I believe. If I'm correct, it's like Romeo and
because
Juliet.
they consider them children, right? Because that's what age of consent also means, right? Are you legally an adult?
Mhm.
Are we saying that an 18-year-old couldn't serve in the military? Are we saying an 18-year-old couldn't buy a house or rent a home or vote? Yes.
Yeah,
there's
if I can't, someone should not be able to vote if I can't legally fuck them. Okay, that's where I draw the line. Ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, does anyone here disagree with me that people are developing later at presently than they did like maybe a few generations ago?
I
What do you mean by
don't know enough.
developing?
Yeah, I don't know enough about that to say.
Look, it's not unheard of. Like there are countries that have it at 21. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, right? If we raise the voting age, like the overall adult age of 21, there's a strong argument. I think that anywhere between 18 and 21 is probably justifiable. But I mean, like when we're talking below 18, this is, I think, clearly now we're in the realm of these people. Their frontal lobes are as thin as paper, right? They're complete idiots, and they don't know what's best for them.
All right, so I have a question.
Okay.
Lactoid, do you believe that the solution to the holy shit, the token solution would be a better solution for the problem that we're looking to solve than something more along the lines of arming parents to be more informed about the issues that we have and giving them the ability to say, okay, I'm going to take control. I'm going to get a net nanny. I'm going to make the rules in my own house.
Yeah, I think that you could do both in the sense of you could arm parents with the education of like, hey, look out for these problems. Like, I think it'd be fine to tell parents to look out for the symptoms of alcohol abuse, right? Because there are kids under the age of 18 who abuse alcohol. But I also think there's a role for the government here as well in protecting minors because, I had parents that were good parents. I still got away with a lot. And my parents were good parents. There's a lot of kids who have either no parents or shit parents that do not stop them from doing anything wrong, and they fuck up their lives because they're kids and they're dumb.
The issue with the alcohol, comparing to this, when I said it was a wash, when I said it was, what I meant was it was wishy-washy. I didn't mean it was a wash. But the jury's still out on it. Can we agree on that?
So the evidence I've seen thus far is it's good enough for me to take action, right? Sure, you can always get better and better evidence, but when I'm seeing a very strong correlation with depression and anxiety, which we're having a major problem with, and this is arising around the time of the rise of social media, and we have evidence that when we cut off the social media use or reduce it dramatically from like 3 hours a day to 30 minutes, right? You get a major drop in depression. Like,
Yeah,
this is
so-
all but causative at this point, right? This is very strong evidence that, you know, this is stronger evidence than cigarettes cause lung cancer, at least the beginning of the cigarette regulations. And that was enough evidence for me.
At the beginning. Okay. So the problem with all but causative is we're talking about removing autonomy from the businesses. We're talking about cutting into their bottom line.
Does that matter to you, Dami?
Absolutely.
So do you think that businesses, your driving light here, right? Your guiding light is that businesses have a duty to make money to their shareholders. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to make money, and therefore it's okay for them to use children in order to do that.
Absolutely not. It's okay for them to not have to take the expense of the millions of dollars that they would have to put in to implement the infrastructure required to verify every single person's at least status of being a minor or not a minor for every user that they have, and at the expense of, say, cutting their user base.
So you don't think
I don't think that's
Twitch-
their responsibility. I
don't
think if
think-
there's a problem, that the parents are the ones with that duty.
So you think Twitch? We're on Twitch right now.
Sure.
Let's use Twitch as an example. You don't think Twitch has a responsibility to put in proper age verification procedures so that its user base, who are children, can't say, for example, gift subs to a streamer?
No.
Okay,
I
so
think that's my job as a parent to say I am in charge of what my kids are doing on their devices that I buy on my internet that
so you
I
think, yeah, I get you. But do you think that someone like a parent, right, who doesn't give a shit, right? They don't care. They're checked out, right? They're daddy rich bucks, right? Or maybe their kid's 16, they have a job at McDonald's, they make some minimum wage job. They get like I don't know, a thousand a month. I'm not sure how much, right? And then you have streamers online targeting minors, okay, appealing to minors with their Minecraft streams and all that, and maybe scantily clad hot tub streams with video games and stuff. And they are specifically appealing to younger audiences in order to part their money from them in a parasocial way. You think Twitch bears no responsibility
not at all.
in that? Okay.
No, because my proposed solution to this problem is arming the parents with the information they need to be more media literate and more capable of guiding their children through navigating these kinds of things. Because if we raise a kid to be 18 years old and they haven't learned, there's people on the internet that are going to try to take your money.
But they're not 18, they're 16, they're 14, they're 15.
They got to learn, though, Wick. They
They
got
gotta
to
learn.
They got to learn through
$10
experience.
Speaking of getting money. Speaking
The
of
most
getting money.
important. What
Speaking of getting money, and I'll
Oh,
let you
yes.
finish. $10 from Psychonaut to say this guy just said that a strip club shouldn't age check. It's on the parents. Respond.
No, a strip club has actual, possibly alcohol, but actual regulated things. We're talking about implementing regulations.
Wait, what's the difference between like going to a strip club and seeing titties and going to a website and seeing titties?
Well, you're walking into a building that is designated for titties. If you want to talk
You're
about
going to a
like,
website that's designated for titties.
No, we're talking about Twitch.
Okay,
There
but
is
let's
a
say
lot of titties on Twitch.
there are.
but-
There's certain channels that are dedicated to titties, right?
Yeah.
Sure. So you go to a specific website, right? A specific URL that has
Link
titties.
your favorite chat.
Right.
Link your favorites.
And then,
Anyway,
like, So does it like this would be like going into a mall that had a strip club in it? Like, you would be okay for saying, hey, no minors into the strip club part?
Well, this is more like going into a mall where some people take their shirt off.
Yeah, I wouldn't want kids to be in this mall.
Because a strip club, what you have is an establishment built to be nude.
Right, but there's websites and there's websites entirely dedicated to much more than just nudity. Okay.
Yeah, but we're talking about social media.
Well, there's Twitch again. Like Twitch has some stuff that's like overtly sexual.
Well, yeah, you can go to school and find something overtly sexual.
I would not be okay with overtly sexual things in a school.
Yeah, but would you say kids aren't allowed to go to school?
No, I would ban the sexual thing in the school. I would say no sexual stuff in school.
That sounds like a more reasonable solution than banning the kids from the school, right?
Well, yeah, because kids have to go to school. They don't have to go to a strip club, and they don't have to go to a website or a Twitch channel that has sexual shit on it, right? They don't have to do that.
Yeah, but we found a solution that doesn't remove the freedoms, right?
Whose freedoms?
The parents' freedoms to make the decisions if they want if they have some kind of, if you want somebody to come watch.
Do you think parents should be able to send their kids to strip clubs?
No, but like I said, that's different. This isn't an establishment that is dedicated to tickle bitties.
Okay.
You have any input, Daniela? Any
you don't see the difference between an establishment that's dedicated?
No. I think there's one is like a tangible place that's been around for longer, so there's more like rules on it that just like hereditary rules, or vestiges of days past. And we're dealing with a somewhat new circumstance here of titties on the internet, right? Because the internet is relatively new, right? Looking at the history of all this shit.
For the titties on the internet aren't new.
Well, no, it's new in the sense that the internet's relatively new compared to like strip clubs, right? And I think that we failed in regulating children from being able to access things on the internet that children really shouldn't be accessing it. And I think a lot of this has to do with a lot of the lawmakers just didn't know what was on the internet. They know strip clubs.
They still don't know, though.
They still don't know, and that is the problem. So we have to do a good job by telling lawmakers, hey, there's a bunch of shit on here that kids probably shouldn't be seeing, right?
But
very comparable to strip clubs, and you wouldn't let a kid into a strip club, so why are we letting them onto a specific Twitch booby stream or a porn site?
So, $5 before you respond, and you respond to this too. $5 from the scorned one. There are non-nude strip clubs that use pasties. Your logic path would mean those clubs don't need to prevent kids from going in. Respond.
Except they serve the alcohol.
Let's say they don't.
Alcohol.
Let's say they don't serve alcohol.
Yeah, pasties, fine.
No,
I don't know why you would let your kid go into it, but like you're talking about dressed women.
Hold on. So you think that it would be okay for a parent to let their kid into a strip club if they use pasties over their nipples?
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about removing the right, not if it would be right for them to do it. You're allowed to take your kid into a bar right now.
I don't think you're allowed to take your kid into a strip club, and I think that's a good idea.
Well, if you're talking about a strip club that
I don't have kids, to be clear, but I'm pretty sure that's a rule.
But if you're talking about a strip club that has clothes, we're not talking about a strip club anymore.
We're not. No. Okay.
Pasties?
You know what a pasty is?
That's overtly sexual.
Let's clear this up. Do you know what a pasty is?
Yes.
Okay.
Your pasties, you're covering the nipples, right?
Yes.
Isn't that
counts?
Couldn't you watch any channel on cable TV and pasties be the thing that means, oh, we don't have to censor this? Isn't covering the nipples the one thing that makes it a finable offense? Not covering the nipples is the one thing that makes showing titties a finable offense?
I don't know enough about the censorship of television to
I'm
tell
pretty
you,
sure
but
that's
I would
the case.
say, if it is the case, I think that's a poor case, right? I think it should be censored.
Yeah.
Far more than.
Now, imagine if it was on like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, right? Just like giant titties with little pasties on them, flopping in front of the. No, I wouldn't be okay with this because this shouldn't be in front of children.
So you're saying titties shouldn't be in front of children?
Unless they're breastfeeding.
Great.
So there's an exception.
There is an exception. The exception is the food, the nourishment for the child. Yes.
There's food at the strip club.
Daniela, save us. What you got? Breastfeeding versus strip clubs. What's the difference? Explain, breast haver. Go ahead.
I would say, oh boy. I think just to like bring this back to what we were originally talking about, I think there are many things that we could rely on before necessitating overall regulation. I think increasing media literacy in school is a necessity. I think having parental involvement is a necessity. Incentivizing parental involvement is a necessity, and incentivizing parental involvement to the point where yes, we rely on the parents to not allow their kids to go in strip clubs or access information online. That's
You're just to be
inappropriate.
clear, you're okay with bans for kids in strip clubs, even if they have pasties, correct? You're
Correct.
on board with this?
What if their mom's
Correct.
working?
I don't. What if their mom is working?
At the strip club, that's even worse.
And
Now that's too much judgmental. Now, how what if that's our only way to get money?
Hold on. No,
Why is the
hold
kid-
on. Yeah, I want to hear from Danielle real quick. I just want to get. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
trying to recalibrate where we're at. So titties on Twitch. Do you think that Twitch? Let's bring it to Twitch, right? Do you think that Twitch does a good enough job right now in preventing children from accessing sexual content?
I have just started using Twitch. From what I understand, you can't show any nudity on there, right? Or are there like designated parts of Twitch where you can? Because it sounds like Lactoid was saying that. I'm unfamiliar.
It's not.
You can't show like nipples
can't
on
show
Twitch,
the
right?
whole thing, right? But
You can get pretty damn close.
You can get really,
Okay.
really close.
Pasties.
Yeah, I think.
So you can
You
you
can
can
do that on
even
the
wear
news, too.
pasties. You can wear pasties on Twitch and not be like banned. I just want to
I don't
understand.
know the specific,
If
but
you have
can
enough
get
followers,
close. Yeah, you can get close. I'm not
It's-
gonna give you the because I don't want to give misinformation here, so I don't know the exact.
I'm not gonna do that
I've
anymore.
never,
But
I've never needed to look this up. But
well, it sounds like it's left to the discretion of the people anyway. Because like as Lactoid just said, if you have enough followers, then you can get a pass for that, from what I understand. So I think, I mean, isn't it like a pretty understood that Twitch's system is like pretty messed up anyway?
Well, that's what
Okay.
I was asking you, whether or not Twitch does a good enough job preventing minors from accessing sexual content. And by sexual content, I don't just mean nudity, right? But I mean like hot tubs, strip dances, but they don't actually like they stay in a bikini, stuff like that.
Yeah.
$5 from Rabid Wombat, and then I'll let you answer the question. Magazine racks and 7-Elevens are censored and buyers age verified. They bear this cost to sell the product. Why should social media be any different? But answer my question, Daniela. I'm really curious.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like they do a very good job at all. I think that we should we should probably increase that age verification to like from. I'm assuming you have to be 13 or older to use Twitch. Is that
kind of? You have to check a box.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to
Click.
expand that,
I'm 13 or older. Click.
I understand there's many ways to get around it.
What do you mean many ways to get around it? You just have to click a box. You have to
You just have to
lie.
click-
It's not
Well,
There's a
hard.
I
very
mean-
complicated way. It involves moving the mouse to a particular area.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's some. Aren't there like some other ways that like verifying an email and all this that. I mean, some kids, I don't think if they're young enough would be able to utilize
do
that.
Some places, but they're not required, right? Let's just be honest with ourselves. The only thing stopping like a 10-year-old from seeing the most hardcore degenerate shit, like in terms of the roughest pornography, is clicking a box. That's the one thing.
It could be the parents.
Right. It could be the parents.
You're right. The parents might stop them from clicking on the box if they're there, if they care enough.
Yeah.
Okay, $5 from Off and Topical. 33 out of 50 states allow public toplessness. 3 ban it. 15 have ambiguous laws. Should we ban kids from being outside lest they see a stray boob?
How about breastfeeding in public?
This seems to be an issue that's unique to Twitch, I would assume. I mean, because there's a lot of social media sites that, other than Twitter, I would say that comes to the top of my head is like that you cannot really have pornographic material, disseminated so frequently.
You have it on Kick. You can have it on. Well, we already mentioned Twitch. We already mentioned Twitter, right? I don't know about Threads. I don't use Threads, right? Let's see. What else is there?
Anything with Meta, I want
to correct one thing real quick as well.
Please.
The person who said that only 3 states outlaw it. It's true that only 3 states overtly have rules against it, but it's not the case that in other states you can just walk around topless necessarily. In a lot of states, if you were to do that, you would get arrested for disorderly conduct, right? They would just put that under discon and arrest you anyway.
Well, he
You
did
can
say
on
it would
Times
be-
Square.
It would
he
be
did say 15 ambiguous laws, right?
well. I'm assuming even in the other states, right? There's going to be situations that they put you under disorderly conduct. There is a line where prurient interest begins. Like where does pornography begin and where does it end? What is sexuality? Is breastfeeding sexual? No, it's not. You're feeding a child. It's good for the child's well-being. I've been a long proponent of women breastfeeding, and I think women should. Most women who say they can't are actually wrong. They actually can. So they're either lying to you or they're lying to themselves. But that doesn't mean that me whipping my dick in circles and saying fuck me in the middle of Times Square in front of children. This is not okay, right? This is overtly sexual. And there is a level of independent judgment that we have to exercise in terms of what's sexual and what's not. But there are some things that are clearly on one side of the line. And a lot of that shit children can easily access by clicking a box if their parents happen to not be there or happen to not care. And I think that's too far. That's too much to allow this easy access to children.
So my issue is we agree on the, I guess, badness of these bad things, right? Or the moral judgments.
Well,
on
I don't
these
know
things.
if we do. You were just saying that like it was cool for strippers, with just pasties to be dancing in front of children.
Wait.
Sorry. You wouldn't stop parents from sending their kids to the strip club that had strippers dancing with pasties.
No, wait. Let me clarify that.
Clarify, please.
I wouldn't make a universal law that said we're gonna because there's I wouldn't make a universal law that says that we're gonna regulate that.
Why not?
Stopping children from going to strip clubs with pasties.
Going into strip clubs.
Yes, with strippers in there that have pasties that are flopping their titties.
Well, what is it that is? Is it an open? Wait, let me get to what I was saying, and then we'll come back to that. Yes, you know what? Fuck that. We do agree on the moral aspect of that. That's what I was saying. I don't know why.
Not just immoral, but legal. No, this is important, right? I'm going to take the brave stance here. No, this is important. Stop. This is important. I, right now, am taking the brave stance that I think we should ban children from entering strip clubs, whether it be pasty strip clubs, whether there be alcohol there, whether or not. If you're under 18, you shouldn't be able to go into a strip club, full stop.
Okay.
Do you disagree?
It depends how it's implemented. Who's the responsibility on? What's going on with
strip club?
No, these are real questions you have to ask. Yeah, something can be illegal, but the
strip club,
the responsibility, that's reasonable. It would be
just
reasonable.
Like the responsibility should be on the website.
Well, no, we have. Wait. Oh, do you believe that the websites are a platform, or do you believe they're like a venue? Would you call them a platform or a venue?
I don't. I think these two terms are synonymous. I don't see a difference.
Okay, so, well, you got me there. So, what was I saying? Oh, okay. So my biggest issue is the responsibility.
Okay, you don't think that the company should have responsibility to keep minors from accessing their product? Daniela, do you disagree or agree with that? And let's try to get a little back on track, right? Let's try to rein it in a little bit.
I did want to bring it back to TOS on websites because, as I mentioned earlier, with Twitch, Twitter, I would have to reread like TOS on those websites. But I understand that some websites are more stringent on what is considered pornographic material and what they frequent on their website versus others that don't. And so, obviously, for websites like Twitch and possibly even Twitter, we would probably have to have more stringent verification systems. Since they do disseminate that kind of those kind of images. And to answer the initial question, I don't think anyone under 18 should enter a strip club. No, but that is up to the business to regulate that themselves, like how the websites should regulate what is considered pornographic material and what can be disseminated on there. But obviously, if it's like a website that does have overtly pornographic material, like Pornhub, for instance, that's a completely different conversation than just what I was under the impression. We're talking about things like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, basic social media sites, where that's
X
not a
But-
known
well,
thing.
let's look at X, for example. You can
X
see,
is a
like, famously, they've had 2-hour-long porn videos just
Mhm.
on X. It's on X. It's there.
I have only used X since Elon got access to it.
That's
So my
when
question,
it came, right?
so yeah, my question is: has that always been the case with Twitter or X, or is it just since it was rebranded?
I can't speak. I'm also very new to the X experience. I wasn't
Okay.
very on before. I didn't notice it then, but it's possibly I wasn't following the right people, quote unquote, right? So,
Yeah.
I can't honestly answer that question. However, I know that in recent days, X has explicitly made it okay for there to be nudity in these things on its site. And again, unfortunately for us all, we're all at risk of encountering a 14-year-old while we're on X and their stupid ass opinions. Okay? Children are on this platform. They do have access to pornography on these platforms. So the question of the panel is, should we, in the interest of protecting children, ban them from these platforms or
Yes.
insist that these platforms have heavy restrictions on what the minor is able to access during their time within? So, for example, my specific advocacies that I would make tonight, and I would challenge you both on, one, if you're under 18, you should not be able to, in any way, shape, or form, donate, give subs, give bits, give any sort of money to any streamer, podcaster, any of these grifters, okay? You don't give them a cent. You should not be allowed to by law. And there should be punishment, right, to the platform if they allow you to do so, right? There should be fines, something, right? That's advocacy number one, okay? Do any of you disagree with that? Let's one at a time. What did you say, Dami? I didn't hear you.
Oh, yes, I disagree with that. It puts
Why?
the responsibility and the cost on the platforms instead of on the parents for regulating their children in their home on their own internet service. Right? Like there is no shortage of scary sexual scary or sexual or bad or dangerous things in this world, and it's the parents' job to monitor and make sure we're keeping our kids safe, we're teaching them to be responsible, and it's the business, like I said it earlier, you didn't like it, but it's the business's job to make money in a way that is moral for them. They don't have a responsibility to our kids, they have a responsibility to their users and to their investors if they're public.
Daniela, do you disagree with my statement? Before I go in on him, I want to make sure I get everyone in here.
We're talking just donations for
Yeah.
streamers that you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
Streamers, podcasters, influencers, all that jazz, right?
Okay. I am leaning towards not agreeing with you. Once again, I think that just goes back to the initial question of whether or not they should be able to use these services at all. I think like we should, once again, just to reiterate Dami's point, we should rely more on parental consent and parental regulation. I think going back to the previous point, I do want to clarify. I think there needs to be more regulations placed on what is considered or what sites can proliferate on their websites, especially if we're considering pornographic material. if a website like Twitch, and I'm sure a lot of us have issues with Twitch, that allows specific material and also allows a certain age bracket to utilize it, such as kids under 18, and they still have pornographic material, there needs to be somewhat of some kind of regulation that clearly distinguishes that, where Twitch would be more reflective of something like Meta's TOS, where you can't disseminate any of that, those images. So I just wanted to clarify that as well.
No, I get you. So I'll address you both, right? The idea that the platforms or the businesses, as Dami Lama would say, have their main responsibility is to make money, but I think that there is a good reason, and I would advocate for restrictions being placed on how they can do so, right? For example, I think one we could easily agree with, like they couldn't use slave labor in order to make more money, even though it would be cheaper. We would all be against that,
That's
even though
illegal.
it would give them more money. Is this true? You'd be against this? Yes?
I'm against them breaking the law. Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm advocating for, is to create a law, meaning it's illegal, right, for them to allow minors to donate money. Am I quiet still? Is this not?
No,
you're
we can
good.
hear you.
Okay. It should be illegal for minors to be able to donate money on things like YouTube, on things like Twitch, on things like Twitter, on things like all these media sites, right? I think it should be illegal to do. I think it's predatory. I think that these sites are preying on minors in a lot of ways, much like I'm against allowing minors to gamble, right? I think that there's good reasons to prevent them from doing so. So once again, I guess I would ask, right, to both of you, what benefit is given to allowing minors to, and let me put it this way. Should I be able to specifically target 16, 15-year-olds in order to get them to super chat to me and give me gift subs? Should that be legal to do?
Well, my question would be, how would you do that? I mean, using what material or
Yeah,
what?
I'd be like, I generate my content to children's shows, children's games. I would put on an air that I'm friendly to children. I would specifically call them out and say, hey, you take your mom's checkbooks, right? Or you can give me some money that way. There's a lot of different ways I could do this, right? I've never tried to target children, but I think I could make it work, right? We could look at some of the bigger streamers like PewDiePie and some of these other streamers who obviously, right, tailor their content towards a younger audience. And we can see how, in a lot of ways, this parasociality is predatory, for lack of a better term. So in order to protect kids from being fleeced out of all their money, I think it's perfectly okay to limit their ability to donate.
Well, with the sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm still trying to
Okay,
find the word.
my question to that would be like, okay, well, if it's like they want to purchase stuff for a game, right? I'm not necessarily even opposed to that, because of a kid that's going to utilize their mommy's checkbook or her credit card rather, irresponsibly, they're going to do that regardless, whether that's online or offline. I think this goes back to the parental consent or parental relationship the child has with the parent. And again, I would just want to and this goes back to the initial argument, is like, how would we implement these verification systems anyway? I guess the authenticator was a thing that we agreed upon, I suppose. And I'm willing to consider that, but just to isolate on your point, I think if there's going to be issues with your point, Wick, if there's going to be issues with kids utilizing their parents' money irresponsibly online, that's going to happen elsewhere anyway. So I don't see why overarching that regulation over to online spaces rather than in-person spaces makes any bit of a difference.
Okay.
But
Any thoughts? Go ahead.
So my issue with it is, I was trying to think of what the thing was called. We have a version of this. It doesn't touch as far as what you're asking for, but we went through it with a couple years ago with COPPA or COPA back in.
Yeah, that's what Daniela mentioned, right?
Oh,
yeah.
But the problem is now we're just adding more. Like, even with that, the response, the duty got placed on top of the platforms.
Yes.
That didn't
Those
solve the
platform-
problem.
No,
We still
it
have
won't-
the problem. And
it
we're going to
won't-
always have people being people and people like
just because there are always going to be people who get around the system, who abuse the system, or who the system doesn't catch, does not mean that we do nothing, that we
No.
don't mitigate it, right? That
That-
there are specific ways. And if what we're doing now isn't working, I would encourage us to find ways that would make it work. $10 from Psychonaut to say we are letting perfection be the enemy of good. And exactly, I don't need a perfect system. I understand that no system is going to be perfect, that there are going to be flaws, there are going to be loopholes. Kids will find a way in some cases, but I think we should be putting more obstacles up towards these kids. And again, my first point was the money, but my second advocacy was being able to interact with adults. I don't think a child, a minor, should be able to message an adult or vice versa. I don't think I should be able to message a 15-year-old. There's no reason for it, right?
So-
And I don't think a 15-year-old should be able to reach out to their favorite content creator. Oh, I love your content. It's so great. Ooh, woo. Right? There is no reason for this, and I don't think it should happen.
So the problem is take Facebook Messenger for example, right? Facebook's also a live streaming platform. They have implemented Facebook Messenger Kids, right? They give parents the ability to limit who their kid is friends with. They get to accept or reject any connections that they would possibly make. We get the output of all of their conversations at will. And the idea that they built this out specifically for parents to be able to monitor their kids and take a proactive approach in making sure their kids are doing what they feel fit for whatever their beliefs are as to what's fit. The idea that we're going to now say, no, that's not enough for you as a platform. Instead of if we want to make any regulation, instead of regulating, hey, parents, you need to do your due diligence because some of the platforms at least, are doing way beyond their due diligence to make sure your kids are safe. So you need to take the time and be educated. And if you don't, then the punishment is on you, not on the platform. When we're talking about platforms with 1 billion people that they have to be able to monitor the age of and the actions of every single one of them.
That is the cost of business. If you can't afford to protect children on your site deserves not to be in business. Point blank, period.
But
That's it.
at
Yeah,
scale,
can't
if you're a
afford-
bar, if you're a bar who can't afford to have the dude at the front door checking IDs,
no, what we're talking about at scale, 1 billion users on your user base. We're talking about making sure nothing happens in a country
Okay,
the size of like India.
We don't need there to be nothing happen. What we need are policies and procedures in place that mitigates these things to keep them from happening in the first place. And we know it's not going to be perfect, but as long as the site can demonstrate that they followed their approved procedures and policies, right, then I think that they're free of any liability here, right? I think that the key is finding procedures and policies and implementing them in such a way that it can be done on scale. And I think we can. Simply, again, age verification token, and then remove the ability to private message from children.
So well,
Just
like
remove it.
platforms like
There's no reason for it.
platforms like Facebook already implemented that, went above and beyond their due diligence that you're talking about right now, the processes and procedures. What do you think would be easier to have, say, a parent of even 10 kids make sure their kids are doing whatever these limitations that we're trying to put on the business
Here,
or
I
the
wanna
business
protect
the parent-
maintaining it for 1 billion people?
you're the one saying that like the parent, maybe you are saying this, that the parents like should be monitoring their 10 kids at all times. What we're saying is, yeah, but what we're saying is that like it would definitely take a lot of stress and you know, this isn't really the argument for why to do it, because yeah, it would make the parent's job easier. But the real reason to do it is if the parent fails, which they often do, then the kid accesses the content that we don't want them to access.
But
this wouldn't be just for
if
Facebook.
the parent
This would be
fails
for
to
every.
keep, if the
Yeah, I
parent
want to
fails to
protect
keep,
kids who have bad
everybody
parents.
wants to protect kids.
To have bad parents specifically. Even if your parents suck or you're an orphan
So
or
if
no
you want
one's
to make
paying
something
attention to
illegal,
you, I want to make sure that those kids are protected too, yes.
if you want to make something illegal, make that neglect. Don't put it on the company that has to keep track of keep track of 1 billion people. Put it on the person that's got to keep track of their 10 kids.
No, we
And
can
that it's
also do
their
this.
responsibility, their fiduciary
no,
responsibility.
we can
That's
do-
literally all
Yeah, we
they
can
have
do
to
that.
do.
We can do that too, right? In the same way that if we find a kid with a bunch of alcohol, we can potentially go after the parent for neglect, but we can also do it supply side as well. If you sell alcohol to a minor, you get in trouble. There is
If
a
you
major
create
fine.
alcohol that down the line of the supply chain gets sold to children, do you get held responsible for that?
So this is a long-standing concept known as proximate cause, right? You obviously have to draw a line somewhere. You can't be like, well, you know, technically, if the parents of the person who sold alcohol to the minor, if they didn't fuck, then the guy would have never been born to sell alcohol to the minor. Therefore, the parents are somewhat responsible. Arguably, like in the most ridiculous worlds, yes, you can always draw some chain of causation towards something else, because ultimately, butterfly effect, everything is somewhat causatively related. But that doesn't change the fact that when you're like, we still hold people responsible for their own actions. And when you have people, and these businesses are organizations of people, and legally they are entities very much like people. And when you put forward a policy of, I'm going to sell alcohol to minors, and you have a clerk giving alcohol to minors, this is a problem. Like I would want them to be prevented from selling the alcohol to minors. The manufacturers don't know that the alcohol is going to be sold to a minor.
But we're not talking about the clerk of the store. We're talking about the landlord of the store.
This is a fair point. Perhaps we could make it like if you direct this to happen, then you should be held responsible. If you don't take steps necessary to prevent it, if you direct it to happen,
I can agree with.
Or if you don't take obvious steps, like tell your employee don't sell alcohol to minors. But yeah, if you tell your employee to not sell alcohol to minors and he does it anyway, at that point it's probably on the store clerk, right? At that point, you probably go after him.
What if you tell your algorithm that is very effective at chasing down and identifying these kind of things? Would that be them fulfilling their due diligence in your eyes?
Potentially. We would put a requirement on like what kind of system that they need. And if they get the system, yes, some people might get past it. But as long as the system is put forward in good faith, I would agree with not holding them responsible at that point, right? They complied with the law.
So how would you avoid, with that, how would you avoid creating a bigger moat for businesses? Or does that not matter? Which is totally valid if you think a bigger moat. So like Facebook right now can spend $1 billion on AI to monitor this kind of thing.
We're not. So let me be clear. So an age gate, I'm not convinced, and maybe this is way fucking off base because I'm not a website engineer. I'm not convinced that putting in an age gate in which you need to put in a token to access the website, I'm not convinced that this is that expensive of an endeavor.
Okay, so this is literally my whole problem with this, is the idea of implementation. The idea that you're going to have the DMV do this and provide a token that stays anonymous while managing to keep the name of the child, and
the children don't get a token because the DMV won't give it to them.
So then you're just pretty much effectively having a box just attached to the parent,
no,
to any adult's name.
The child can't get into the website.
Well, they can if somebody with a token lets them in.
Yes, and a kid who takes their parent's ID might be able to buy alcohol.
Yeah, but like, what happens if they... Wait, no, but that doesn't solve the problem, though.
But it does. It puts another barrier for children getting the shit we don't want them to get.
How... So with that, are you thinking of that being implemented nationwide?
Sure.
How when the DMVs are statewide?
It would be your local DMV. You'd get the token from your local DMV, the one that has your information anyway.
But how would you have who would pay for this? And how would they implement that statewide? Like for example,
It'd be
like
some federal grant to all the DMVs, design this system, all the DMVs do it, and now everybody has a DMV access to the DMV system. Or you have one system that like you develop and then you give it to all the DMVs. Right? This is not a problem, right? We could easily.
And how would that be implemented on the platform side? Would that be would that be covered by the government? The government would pay for the implementation of that on the servers?
No, the servers. Why would this require new servers? You're just literally putting an age gate.
If you're talking about something at scale for 1 billion people,
yeah, for an age gate,
and you have to age gate every single person for 1 billion people. You don't think you're going to need to spin up a server?
If we're talking about a website or a service that has over 1 billion users, they can afford a server. If we're talking about a little small business that can't afford a server, well, now we're not talking about 1 billion users anymore. Now we're talking about a very small number of users.
Which brings us back to why are we making the platform pay?
In the same way we make the bar pay for their own bouncers. In the same way we make
It's not a law that the bar has to have bouncers.
Bars have to check ID. Yes.
No, you can. The illegal thing doesn't happen when the kid walks into the bar. The reason why there's bouncers at a bar is to keep the kid from getting accidentally served.
Pretty sure minors can't go into bars.
That's a very wishy-washy rule. There are some under some circumstances they can, under other circumstances they can't. But regardless, we are still making the bartender spend time, and they're paid by the hour. We're still making the bartender spend time verifying people's identities. Does that cost the business some money? For sure. And we say, yes, you're going to have to spend some time making sure you're not serving minors.
I want to make sure Danielle gets some shots in here too, right? We've been neglecting her a little bit.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm just listening to the argument here. And it is true that in my initial issue with the age thing was the verification process, essentially, because I'm more concerned about the data breaches, not necessarily the need for children having access to social media. And what Lactoid did pose with the authenticator process is interesting to me. I don't know if it's fully convincing, but I guess I'd just have to be more familiar with the process involved. But he's saying that the local DMV will look over that information. And would you use Lactoid, I guess, just to ask you about this? Because I am interested in the implementation process as well. Because I think that's what other countries run in. That's like a big issue that other countries run into when they try to implement these processes. But you would initially you mentioned
they're not America, and America is great. Anyway, go ahead.
Right, that's true. We're definitely better than China. But you mentioned something similar to what Google uses, and they're like, I had to use that app before too, where it like sends you a code, right?
Yeah, Google Authenticator.
Okay.
There's a number of apps that do this, and a lot of apps you can elect. A lot of games even you can elect to like add an authenticator to your account. So you can only access your account if you have the authenticator code from the app on your phone. I'm saying just have that system, and I'm sure this is a little bit more complicated than putting it than this might be, but the concept is roughly the same, right? The authenticator code is given to you by the DMV that you can use to access whatever adult website, whether that be certain social media, whether that be pornography, whatever, right? You can use to access that stuff, and it prevents kids from accessing it. My question for you is, let's say the implementation works. Are you on board then?
I did want to ask, when you say adult site, does that cover like any social media website? And like Facebook, Instagram, everything?
I mean, so for the ones you listed, yes, I would put that, yes.
Okay.
Now, what I would be open though, let's say a company was to make a social media site specifically dedicated to children, and like it had
God.
I know it sounds crazy, but like let's say they did that and they could prove to me that they took sufficient like safeguards in place where it's like, yeah, you guys really did think of everything. This is probably a fine place for kids to be. Like it automatically limits them to 30 minutes a day. It makes sure there's no adults on the site. Like there could be a circumstance that maybe I'd make an exception.
Yeah, that second bit that you just said, make sure there's no adults on the site, is what worries me. One of the concerns I have with isolating or even identifying minors on the internet is it makes them targets. It puts a target on their head, right? And predators are out there. They know, oh, hey, this person's a minor, okay? Most people, good people, I think people are mostly good. They're like, oh, 14, do not interact. I don't want anything to do with you. Go away, kid, right? But there's a certain subset out there that would absolutely make those people a target. And so that is my concern with your stance here, Lactoid, right? If I may push back against you, is that by segregating children to their kids-only section or whatever, what you are doing is you are putting all the targets in one place that all the predators know they're there.
Wick.
And I think that
Well,
it
the
makes
code,
it...
the code the person gets in the DMV, though, I'm assuming it wouldn't be transferred to those websites. It wouldn't be usable, right?
There would need
Okay.
to be there. Look, I'm not even. I said this could maybe be an exception, like the kids only social media, maybe, and they would need to prove to me that like this is not going to be an issue, because I also sympathize with that issue that you just presented. You like any company that did this and they want like an exception, like, oh, we should you should allow children to be on our website. You got to prove to me that like this is not going to happen, that you're not going to have predators on this site, and that you have some kind of like verification system. You have some kind of system, like very solid system in place to prevent this from happening. And then I might be on board. But until you can prove that, I'm all right with just, look, if you're a kid, you really shouldn't be on social media.
So here's my main problem. My main problem is I don't see a way the one-time password, I mean the authenticator idea, all of that could be implemented in a way that separates having to identify a kid and put the information and the consent information on a database in order to track liability for the platform, because we're putting it on the platform. And then when we have something happen like the Neopets leak, now we have information identifying kids.
No, you wouldn't need this.
But no,
they
what you're
aren't
saying,
going to have. They aren't going to have any information of the kids.
you're inventing technology, though.
Wait,
So you realize you're inventing technology.
Which website's going to have the kids' information?
The problem is you're inventing technology. One-time password is
It is a
not
real thing.
No, I know it's a real thing. One-time password is a second factor in your authentication.
What?
So the reason why this exists is you log in with your username and your password, and then you get this one-time password that rotates.
Yes, that's how that's how a lot of websites currently operate. Is there any reason why that first part couldn't be skipped and you just enter the one-time password?
I mean, that kind of thing happens, but where are you keeping the identifying information?
The DMV.
Okay, how do you resolve that to the rotating numbers on the platform side?
The DMV's website gives you the code. The DMV already has all your information.
So here, let me walk you through this as I understand it, and Lactoid can correct me if I'm wrong. So I, Wick, am 40 years old, right? Old enough to do whatever I want online. I want to see some titties, okay? $10 from Psychonaut. Can anyone talk about any good SM gives to kids that is far greater than the negatives? Can anyone talk about any good social media gives to kids that is far greater than the negatives that are currently impacting them? Keep that question in mind. We'll get to it. Thank you for the $10. But let me walk you through. Okay, Wick wants to see some titties on some adult websites. I'm 40 years old. I can, okay? So I'm like, man, I need an authenticator token. So I go to my local DMV's website. All DMVs have these, right? I put in my name or whatever or something, and I click, give me a token. And then I get a randomized token. That's good for 24 hours or so much time, right? A day, 30 days, I don't know, right? You get a randomized token, and then you go, and when you try to go into the titty website, you have to give them that token. And yeah, you bada bing, bada bang, now I can access my titty site. But if Wick was little Wick, and he was only a mere wee 11-year-old Wick, I would not be able to do that. Does that sound right to me, to everyone? Like,
That's my
Yeah,
system.
I understand.
where's the
The
rub
problem
here?
is the implementation. First, like, this concept doesn't exist. We would have to invent this.
What do you
we
mean it
would
doesn't
have to
exist?
have
We
s-
do this all the time on like Twitch. When I log into Twitch, right, it asks me for an authenticator token, right, which I have to get, and it's good for 30 days.
The
It's
pro-
already something I do.
The problem is those authenticator tokens. What they're doing on there doesn't have identifying information. That's the point of them. What we need to fix, what we would need to have is somewhere where the information is, and then somewhere on the server side that resolves the connection between your authenticator token and the rotating number and your identity. Because what happens with when you get to the second part of the two-factor authentication, you've already handled that identity problem. You've logged in with your username and your password. They have that part of your identity based on, but now what we are doing in this theoretical technology is we have to resolve it to an actual name and verification of your government
don't.
information. No, you do. If the whole point
Only
of it
to
is to
get
prove
a token. That token is randomized. It can't be traced back to my name. The DMV has simply authorized me. This is a randomized token. There's no connection to where I use that token. When I enter it into the site, they don't check with the DMV. They simply, is this token valid or is this token invalid? That's it.
My question to Lactoid would
Please.
be, how would this prevent? And correct me if I'm just misunderstanding the process completely. I'm sorry if I am, but how would this prevent adults giving children those tokens?
You couldn't, right? There'd be no
Okay.
way to prevent any adult from doing this. In the same way, there'd be no way to prevent an adult from buying alcohol for their kid.
Right.
But that doesn't
Okay.
mean we just throw out the rules of minors being able to do this by themselves, because at least now we've made it more difficult for minors to do this in the absence of adults. Arguably, this actually gives more power to parents to stop their kids from doing this shit, because now the kid can't do it on their own, right?
but
They would need their parents to, like, collaboration to even get the code to do the shit. Which, I mean, I don't think parents should be doing that, but at least then there's a parent involved.
Wait, okay. Wait, we might not actually. So the liability on that with your theoretical technology wouldn't be on the platform if they
It
use
would.
this?
It would
Oh.
if they don't use the system.
Yeah, if they don't use the system. As long as they use the system, if they require the code to enter, then I'm not going to hold the business responsible. Even if they get the code from their parents. At that point, it's on the parents.
I mean,
maybe I can hold
So
the parents
hold on,
responsible.
I'm throwing a
I'd
flag
be
on this.
sold.
I'm throwing a flag on this because we're looping really bad here. I want to address the super chat that was sent, and I want to ask first Daniela, then I want to ask Dami. Right? We talked about some negatives of social media all night, but the super chat asks a fair question. What positives do you think? What sell us on the argument that aside from their freedom to choose, right? What benefits does a child have from being a social media? What benefits do they have from watching Amaranth on Twitter or
Again, I did want to, I guess this connects to my next question. Would be for Lactoid. Would be could be considered or what would be covered under this token. But if we're talking about just basic like message sharing apps, I cannot cite a lot of sources indicating or research indicating that there is like major benefit of utilizing social media. But there are some articles that I've read last night that did show that there are minor psychological benefits in having social media. And Lactoid did mention this initially at the beginning of the debate, where finding like-minded people, connecting with friend groups, especially, or in some instances, if you come from an abusive household, it also can be very much helpful to have social media sites as well. So there are benefits involved. In fact, also video games, I read a report that suggested I couldn't tell you the source on the top of my head right now, but I do recall reading a report also that said that 40 minutes a day video games actually increased cognitive ability. Past a certain point, it actually showed the opposite. But there is an argument to be made that having access to technology and to certain information is beneficial in the long term, but it's usually under circumstances where it's highly regulated in the time limit that you have. So again, I'm not necessarily opposed to having safeguards put in place to prevent children having long-term access to social media. But my question would also be what would these tokens or these authenticators be? What sites does it cover? Because we're just talking about adult sites, and I was under the impression, at least for this debate, it would be for basic Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat.
I would assume, right, that you would also need one to log into Instagram, and you would
Okay.
also need one to log into Twitter.
I mean, in that case, I would just have to reconsider, because again, and this goes back to the core of the argument, which is the relationship the child has with their family and their parent. That's true, though, Lactoid, that this also would incentivize probably stronger relationships. Because I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of this system put in place. If the parent wants to, for instance, if the parent trusts the kid and they think their kid can handle it, they could give them that token, and perhaps that could benefit that kid in some cases. I wouldn't be right. That was the opening statement that I had of this debate, is that I do believe in safeguards. I think they should be left up to parental discretion, first and foremost. And I did mention the idea of registering phones, for example. This system that you suggested, it sounds like to me there's not a lot of security issues that would be involved in this, so I'm not necessarily opposed to it. But that was a bit of a long-winded answer, so I apologize for that.
It agreed with me,
Okay.
so it was a good answer. I'm good.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess to Lactoid then, right? Just to kind of pick on you a little bit here, right? Do you not think that it sets so for my business, I make my money from social media, right? I did not grow up with social media, but I grew up with the proto social media they had, like forums and AOL chat rooms and things like that. So I learned, right, from an early age how to navigate these spaces and things like that. Do you not think that it sets our children back by not allowing them to grow up learning how to utilize, navigate, and deal with these spaces in a competitive way? Because if we ban it for our children, and then Canada, those fuckers, okay, Canada doesn't, and the Canadians, they develop all the best memes because all their kids, right, have grown up in the trenches of Twitter and things like that, and being able to access these things. Don't you think that puts America at a disadvantage? And why do you hate America?
Well, Wick, I don't know how this would affect the quality of our memes, okay, of our meme supply, our M1 meme supply. It could negatively affect it. I don't know. It could improve it, right? Because if you don't have children making memes and you don't have children upvoting memes, maybe actually good memes might overtake the shit memes, right? Have you seen the memes these children are doing? You might think, oh, it's different, right? Skibbity toilet. It might just be like another thing.
Media. Do you, sir?
I don't look. I want to be I don't want to be anywhere near a child. Okay, they're evil people. They're barely people. They're not really people. I think when you become 18, you just turn it like a light comes on in your head, and now all of a sudden you're a real person. That's how I view humanity. And I don't think these things create good memes. I think they create shitty memes, usually about weird, obscure references that are bad. It's the strangest fucking humor ever. And it makes them depressed. So yeah, Canada maybe will have higher meme generation, but I'm guessing they're going to have shittier memes, and the kids who are making the memes are going to be offing themselves.
But in a more serious,
that's not music, that's noise.
Sure. In a more serious note, right? We do recognize that the way we communicate globally and interact with the world is more and more and more, like it or not, through social media. And I think that there is some benefit in children learning how to navigate that and becoming familiar with the technology and how to use it.
Put a
And
class
not
in high
having to
school
wait
on it.
like
Put a class where they can go to like
Media
the
literacy.
computers. Yeah, media literacy. They can sit in a computer lab and it can go take them through an instructional guide. Here's how you make a meme on Facebook, right? And then when they turn 18, they're gonna go out into the real world and they're gonna quickly learn shit, okay? Because now they're adults. No, I don't think that our having 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds on the internet makes the internet a better place. I think it makes it a worse place. I think really anywhere children are makes that place a worse place. And because I'm on the internet, right, I've got a direct bias here and just wanting the internet to be a good place.
I interrupted both you, Dami, and you, Daniela. So please go ahead.
Go ahead, Danielle.
What is this? Is this for the meme question?
Oh, no, you were trying to say something and I interrupted you, and I apologize.
Oh no, I don't remember what I was saying. I was
Fair
so
enough.
enamored by the last conversation that I
Enamored
lost
is a
track.
word.
Yeah.
Enamored is a word. I guess. Well, we are kind of winding down here, so let's do this. Is there anything from the let minors have access to social media side that we haven't touched on that you think we should have? Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I think that social media is a part of our society. And I think that arm is growing in relevance. It's growing in the actually that's part of the problem. But it's growing in relevance and you're really kneecapping a big part of how we interact together today and tomorrow for this idea of what was yesterday. If we're just thinking about limiting kids on social media altogether.
Response?
I look, my response is we got to put these children in Weenie Hut Jr., right? Like they need to be in a different location. There is the kiddie, the ball pit that the kids can go and play in, while the adults sit in a different area. I'm not
Gross.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that that children having this sort of widely unfettered access to adults on the internet, I don't think this is a good thing at all. And I think I understand the concerns with literacy, but I just think there's so many ways around this, and I'm not really convinced that it really makes these kids all that much better. I think what it does is it makes these kids depressed, and then I have to deal with them like when they start when they become an adult, and now they're depressed adults, and now they're on the internet being depressed, and now I gotta fucking tell them how to be happy, and it's just not good.
Dami, your
Yes.
14-year-old kid wants you have a 14-year-old daughter, and she's like, "Hey, Daddy Dami, right? I want to go on.
Wow.
I want to go on Twitter. Okay, I want to go on Twitter. Do you allow your kid on Twitter?
Twitter, like today's Twitter? No.
No, you wouldn't allow. What
Hell
about
no.
Twitch? What social media sites would you allow your child on at 14 years of age?
TikTok.
You'd allow them on TikTok.
Yep.
Okay, Daniela.
Might as well
Same
just put a
question.
fucking plug from the CCP directly in the back of their head to be controlled by the communists. Okay, that's what TikTok is. That's what they're doing. Sorry,
Daniela, your kid. You have again, mommy Daniela. Okay.
Mhm.
14 years old. They want to go on Twitter, on Twitch, on all these sites. Which sites do you let them on? Which sites don't you? Why?
I would allow them on sites with stringent TOS rules as it applies to, once
Such
again,
as?
what I mentioned with the pornographic material, such as like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Threads. They're pretty good with their TOS on that, as far as I understand. TikTok's cancer, so probably not TikTok. There's like a direct correlation between like use of TikTok and like the diagnosis of certain mental illnesses. So I don't know if I'd let them use TikTok, but things like Twitch, especially X, I would not, because they're not really good with their TOS on that. So no. Not on the sites that clearly do not care about pornographic
But
material.
you allow them on Instagram, even though we do have studies that show access to Instagram increases the rates
Increases
of self-harm.
depression,
Yeah. for
self-harm.
children.
That's more of a question of the child's individual temperament. And since you're asking a question that's limited to my individual child,
understand.
I would just have to look at the patterns that they,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Gang, this has been a beautiful discussion, right? I think we've covered all the bases here. I think that we've had a lot to talk about. I want to give each of these individuals a chance to have closing statements, closing arguments, and then final plugs for their stuff. And then I got some great content coming up I'll tell you about, but let's get to their stuff first. And if you've liked this content, if you've enjoyed what we've been selling here tonight, right? Throw some subs my way, some super chats, some bits. All these things help. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on Twitch or Kick, hit that follow button. We got some great stuff coming up, but I'll tell you about this after we get these wonderful individuals to plug. We'll start with Dami. Dami, give us what you got.
All right. I think altogether, the moderation of what content children consume is the responsibility of the parents. There is some due diligence on the parts of the platforms, but I would put the ultimate responsibility on the parents.
Okay, where can people find you?
X, the best naked platform there is. .com/thedamilama.
Give him a follow, gang.
I'm dressed though.
Check him out. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you taking
Thank you
time
for
out of your
having me.
day to come on the show. So, gang, if you're watching this, give him a follow. I have links to all their guys' descriptions in my YouTube description. So check that out. Click on their links. It'll be great. Daniela, final thoughts.
Yeah, so this initially goes to my point, which I opened up with, and also to reiterate Dami's point, is that it's all about the relationship the child has with their parent, and parental discretion is. And this is what I opened up with, and I feel like this is what I'm ending with, that parental discretion is very much necessary in this process. I feel like in this dialectic, I did come to a bit of an agreement with Lactoid, actually, because I did not consider the authenticator process. Once again, breach of data was my primary concern. So since that is kind of a way around that, I am willing to consider that option. I'm still not convinced, though, that preventing access to websites with stringent TOS laws like meta platforms would necessarily need to be covered under that. But perhaps we could utilize that process for more pornographic sites, especially for straight up porn sites as well. That probably would be more beneficial for American society right now, honestly. But even so, even if we do implement this process, it would still require, I think, a decent relationship or a positive relationship with the parents, regardless, because that way the parent could possibly consider that their child should have more access to social media if we were to apply the authenticator process to utilizing all social media sites. So it could be up to the parents' decision anyway. So I'm willing to concede that he did propose a good point on that. But at the end of the day, I think parental discretion is at the crux of this issue. And that's what I opened up with, and that's what I close with. So that's pretty much my stance on the issue.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on most social media platforms just under my name, Daniela Pensac, except Twitch. On Twitch, I just recently made it. It's Dialectic Piglet. That's the name you can find me at. Otherwise, Daniela Pensac on X and everywhere else, basically.
Check her out, gang. Really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed your first debate on the Wick TV show. So thank you. Give her a follow, gang. She deserves it. Putting up with us. Last, but certainly not least, Lactoid.
Yeah, so you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm still going to call it Twitter. I'm sorry, X is a dumb name. Wick, I'm going to spend my closing answering the question that you had asked the other two panelists here as to essentially, essentially how would you parent your child? And I've thought about this, right? Not only would my child not have any social media at all, but my child is going to wake up early every day. They're going to study an hour of theory, right? Either Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, something for 1 hour every single day. They're going to do firearms training for at least 2 hours. They're going to be doing physical education in addition to whatever homeschooling routine that I'm going to develop for them. It's going to educate them on what they need to know. And this is going to be the most intelligent, physically fit, happy super soldiers that I'm going to use for my own private army for libertarianism. This is directly contrary to the CCP's interest with TikTok and the other organizations that control social media that is poisoning the minds of our children. We need to fight back. This is the only way to fight back. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Lifetoy TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube.
Gang, it has been a show. We might have a show tomorrow. We might not. It's really up in the air. It depends on if people can make it. Two of my community members wanted to debate on Israel-Palestine, and they've been arguing enough in my Discord that I thought, you know what? I'll host it if they show up. Thursday is the 4th of July, the most important day in all of the universe that you should be celebrating, and I'm going to be celebrating, right? So I'm going to be loving America in my own way, okay? And I hope you love America. Whether you live in America or not, everyone should love America and celebrate 4th of July. USA, USA, it is the best. USA from sea to shining sea, meaning across the globe, global hegemony, superpower forever, okay? That's what we're doing Friday. Thursday, I should say. Friday, on the 5th, we're going to have Adam Mockler, and we're going to be taking Collins. He unfortunately wasn't able to make our debate show. Sad. But he's going to make it up to me by co-hosting my Collins show on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So tune in for that. And then the big one, gang. This is the one you want to tune in for. This is the one I worked my ass off, right? With in conjunction with Brianna Wu, who helped me out a lot, right? To set up. We're going to have Joe Walsh, former Illinois congressman. Okay. We're going to have Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Okay. We're going to have Destiny, who's been on my show. He's no big deal, right? And we're going to have Brianna Wu, also no big deal, been on my show a few times. And then we're going to have me. And we're going to be talking about whether or not Biden should drop out of the race. Is that in the best interest of the Democratic Party? Is that in the best interest of the Democratic voter? Right? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss. I say no. I say Biden was the primary victor, and it would be a undemocratic thing to throw out all the millions of primary votes cast for him to let the elites appoint a new nominee. I don't think it's feasible. I think it makes our chances of winning worse overall. And for these and a host of reasons, I'm against it. But we'll be talking about it on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so a little earlier than normal. Make sure you tune into that, gang. It's going to be a show. It's going to be a great show. Me and Destiny versus the rest of those cowards, okay? No, they're great people. I love them all. I appreciate them coming on. But yeah, tune in. Okay. Lactoid, are you going to be streaming after this?
No, I'm going to be heading off. Okay. I just wanted to say, though, I think you should keep him. I mean, he is the president that beat Medicare.
Ha, 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 ha. Look, he had a bad night. We all acknowledge he had a bad night. But we do what we can with what we got. And I think that overall, he's just a better candidate than Trump, especially. But we can argue about that another day. We'll right into Tiberius D. Why not? Wait, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. 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 See you guys tomorrow. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, and we are... Okay, now that the audiences are gone. Do you guys like it?
My audience is still here, just so you're aware.
Oh, okay. Did you have fun? Did you enjoy it? Come on.
I liked it. It was my first debate panel, so I'm sorry if I slipped up a little bit, but I enjoyed it.
I've seen you on panels before.
Debate panel. It's my first active debate panel. Sure. Yeah, or I'm an actual participant.
I did. The porn caught me off guard, though.
Porn always catches us off.
Always. It's its job, right?
Okay. I guess people are sending me a clip. Okay, Daniela, I have to apologize. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable with this clip. I don't know if you saw it.
Which
it was the one where we were talking about breastfeeding.
Oh, no.
Oh yes, let's go.
Yeah. So
They said they clipped that. I'm sure they did.
they clip.
What
and
was
they
my reaction
said-
bad or what?
No, this is on me. I said,
Okay.
explain, breast haver. And they're like, so if I made you uncomfortable, I apologize.
No, it's
Didn't mean
fine.
to.
It's
Okay.
fine.
Just want to make sure. Okay. With that, any questions from either of you before I head out?
No, I had fun.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Would you all want to be on again at some point?
I'd love it.
Absolutely.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll see you later then. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Catch you guys later. All right. How we all doing today? We're gonna rate out into Rob. I feel like it's important. Yeah, so we'll do that. Can I just say how much more pleasant it is in Lactoids chat? Oh, well, thank you, Kyle. You're always welcome in my chat. I appreciate it. Oh, Rob's debating a Convoy right now. Well, then there you go. That's going to be the person. I mean, that'll be interesting for sure. Yeah, appreciate you guys. All that you guys, a bunch of people gave bits today. Really appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in and chatting and all that good shit. And I will see you guys later. Catch you later.
Same election that Trump's being charged with, they decided not to prosecute.